Hello. Witamy w Warszawie. Dzień dobry.
Dzień dobry. Dziękuję.
Just following up, I'm not sure if it's going to be a quick one, but I was curious on your perspective on working with plants, plant medicine, all the psychedelics, ayahuasca. This is very popular right now, gaining popularity, also like enhancing that introspection, and sometimes I'm talking about more like a healing context, right? That can also shift the frequency and sometimes help people release certain emotional states. Do you think it's helpful, or there's some perils in that?
So let's first distinguish here clearly for the sake of clarity. Do you mean plants as the kingdom of plants or specific plants? Because I want to make sure I don't just like... Are we talking about the plants because this is it's an extraordinary topic? Or are we talking about, let's say, because a lot of people ask me, going way back before I went public, when I really worked privately, people were, like coming from, let's say, years of ayahuasca, hallucinogenic mushrooms, like various kind of consciousness-altering substances. See? But you started your question with plants, and my heart lit up. So I want to make sure whether I'm just for nothing.
Thank you for that. Because now I'm trying to kind of see what I meant. I guess originally was more on the specific plants, but recently I had this experience in Brazil when we went to experience specific plants, but we were experiencing all the plants. I mean, the other plants as well, because there's like there are dietas that are done with some flower, let's say, and they're not particularly hallucinogenic, but they have some effect, right? So the tribes over there work with the plant kingdom in a little bit broader spectrum. But living in the US in the past year, I've seen that kind of renaissance, let's say, of psychedelic assisted therapies, right? It's even legal right now in certain states. So maybe not to make it too broad of a topic, and it's my first time actually meeting you, so if you spoke about it earlier, apologies, I didn't kind of like catch it. So maybe on the specific, which are right now kind of gaining some popularity and coming into mass communication and awareness.
Well, definitely. Sure, we can speak about this, and maybe I will, in this case, allow greater license for bringing personal experiences here, deeply personal, deeply intimate. I think an opportunity is really calling for it. So there are a few threads that I'd introduce, and feel free to plot them together, keep them separate, and whatever makes sense to you. So first, I did myself have taken consciousness-altering plants in my youth, certainly. I wouldn't say that I was on it. I would say that I never even bought it. So that shows you that I wasn't really, I never bought it. But if it was around, I would join for free. And there was a lot of it around at the time. There's also a very strong stuff was coming from Afghanistan, particular type of marijuana that is known as Afghanka. The Soviet Union was heavily up to its ears in Afghanistan, right? And so, of course, it was coming from there, and it's known for it. If someone knows that they know, where the best hashish, where the best, the best marijuana grows in Afghanistan, the best opium as well. Somehow, conditions, whatever. There's a lot of it in Uzbekistan. A lot, whole plantations, wild ones. But it's nothing in comparison to And the thing is, it's like one little ball size of a head of the match, right? Stick is enough into a roll, broken and roll with the tobacco, for 5 people to be knocked out for 6 hours, like flat, almost LSD style. So, of course, I've tried that. And this is where I had some of my most distinguished out-of-body experiences. In fact, when I had my first Conscious TV interview with Ian McNay, they were both very sweet. They invited us for a supper. Night before, Ian and Renata, we went for a meal together, me and my wife, Amrita Madevi, and Ian and Renata. And of course, Ian and Renata, we've met at the Science and Non-Duality a few months before in Holland, where the idea to interview myself came because I was on a partner. But anyway, to cut the story short, when Ian had some of this, like bits of that, he wanted the whole interview about that. He wanted like interview me about all this stuff, you see? But I made it very, very clear that I will not talk about it for Conscious TV, period. I will not be known, like this was a kind of early still years exposure, going back to 2012, I think. I'm not going to talk about it, sorry, Ian. I'm happy to talk about it now, but not then. Oh, come on, you know, like this, that. But it will be so useful. I think, no, I don't think it will be useful. So I'm just saying that I had this very, very distinctive out-of-body experience, so distinctive that it left me without any iota of a doubt of what I experienced already as a kid prior to that, you see? Because there was always this something lingering, something was there, like, is this, you know, and I was about 15 or 16, and just looking if my daughter is still here, she's gonna be 16. Thankfully she's not here, so that's reassuring. So, oh, you're there, darling. It's okay. Just carry on, like, whatever you're doing. I was maybe 16 at least, maybe older. And we were the guys, you know, and we were in a cotton campaign. Students were sent to do the, you know, like picking up cottons, like art students picking up cottons for 2 months, you know, in the fields. This is Soviet Union. So, of course, like pastime. And it's the 3rd day we are rolling and just like having a good giggle, having a good laugh. And this is like, it was different because I just remember lay down and I felt how all the liquid out of my body were entered out of my spine into the earth. And I felt that very distinctive dislodging from the body, like dislodging. And I started having a different POV. This was very amazing because I saw an aerial view of the guys who were sitting there, not just my body. So it wasn't just a POV with regard to, let's say, I'm in an etherical field in relation to the physical body. The whole setting was there. I even remember seeing, oh, that guy has a funny, you know how fast everything goes? This guy has a funny kind of, the way the hair grows there, you know, like, all this is noticed. And noticing how pale I was. And then noticing how someone is like, look, he's pale. He's like, you know, and someone is like, kicking my foot there, you know, like we're all in the boots, you know, like, hey, and I'm up there. And I feel like this POV is, the whole thing is like receding and I'm flying, like really withdrawing. And at that moment, there was this sudden flicker of fear entered, just a flicker. And instantly I was thrusted back into the body. This was a very distinctive experience, which I wanted to replicate, of course, but never with such crystal clarity. So, of course, I took plenty of various different consciousness-altering substances to see what it will do. And nothing really was to write home about in terms of clarity of this, you see? like seeing different shapes, like having a trip, right? Like that term. When I was in Sedona, for instance, invited by Integral Sedona, facilitated by the founder, the co-founder of the Integral Sedona, late Charles Wells, wonderful man. He was ordained as a priest, then left his priesthood and became a professional spiritual seeker. He worked in the first group with Timothy Leary. If you remember that name, Timothy Leary was a pioneer who took all this at the level of scientific investigation. Speaking of the polyvagal theory, he wanted to understand exactly how each drug works, what it does. And so there was a group of people back in the days that were not just like hippies who are here for free drug. They were investigators into the realm of consciousness. So this always like extraordinary days, you can just imagine. So we've spent a lot of time when Charles Wells, who since passed on, and he was already then in his 80s, he was among the group, the first group. They would wake up in the morning, have like some stretches, like some yoga, some meditation, breakfast, and they will take that certain amount of LSD, let's say little amount, then they will go on a trip, write the experiences, the day will proceed, then they will take more, the next day they will take double, trip, like all this was like, the next drag, this was, see? So of course, we had a lot of exchanges back in the days of how it impacts consciousness and what the experiences are. And what was interesting is that Charles related to me this exact thing, irreproducible nature of certain experiences, which made this whole research very, very difficult. Because research is supposed to give you some kind of coherent body of work, isn't it? So we're going to now make a leap. And already we're offering program. This is still within the same kind of years when I was in Sedona, California. We were few years out of Europe. And man who came into our work, who was transcendental meditation teacher since his youth, brilliant artist, brilliant man, both him and his late wife both came into this work. They were both transcendental meditation teachers since their 20s, both artists. And they came to the first, what we call immersion, in California, in the Ralston White, in Mill Valley. And I remember to this day how Charlotte comes to me, late wife of this gentleman of whom I'm talking about, and he says to me, whatever you do here, right, is beyond praise. But I want to thank you personally for one thing. You took my husband back from all his trip to ayahuasca. He's done 110 trips, okay? And after this immersion, he said, I don't need ayahuasca anymore. I'm in ayahuasca permanently, okay? I'm not doing this as a plug-in. To me, this was also like a very clear understanding of what I already knew. And what is interesting is that it is very difficult and full of speculations to reproduce a coherent result with how this works, particularly when it comes to consciousness-altering substances as ayahuasca, because we're dealing here with something else. More about it in a moment. I will come back to that because I still want to build another thread here. And yet, it is very easy to conduct research and end up with coherent picture based on groups of people meditating, because the feedback is constant. You see, a meditator can reproduce experiences and can keep tapping into them. Someone who is given to these experiences with psychedelic drugs cannot. He or she is always at the mercy of how the plant will take that being on a spin. You see? This is all boils down to what someone like a great peer in the field, I'm saying that humbly, with a great respect, Robert Svoboda spoke about this as a reminder of what his spiritual mentor, Vimalananda, told him, that whenever it comes to substances, whenever it comes to addictions, and this work is a lot about addictions, because addiction is a quality of consciousness. And we all are addicted one way or another to something. Even if we are not aware, we think we are not addicted. We think we're free. We think we're individuals. We think we make choices. It's just a nice idea. But in fact, we are grooved, patterned, part of the pattern. And we always are already belong to a certain kind of addictive nature of something. So what makes the difference here is consciously consuming something. And that could be something which is totally and utterly inconsumable. Something like poison, something like which is obviously not good for you. But if it's done consciously, knowing how, it can usher extraordinary results. The line here is, at what point something is being consumed to assist is being blurred and one is being consumed by that what is being consumed by someone who thinks I am consuming. He's become in itself consumed. So this is always a very great reminder and a very tantric one. So, and finally, when you said talk about plants, I want to say something now very deeply intimate. Just as I was rearranging my books before catching flight, literally, this is true completely. As I was rearranging my very little slim shelf in my little kind of corner of the house, in my little room office, whatever, puja room, it has multiple, everything, that little sanctuary. 3 kids, you have to understand that, sandwich between the wonderful, magnificent teenage daughter and a 3.5-year-old magnificent, wonderful baby is being sandwiched, being rubbed thoroughly. So this is sanctuary where I kind of recharge my battery. So I was rearranging the books and giving way for this freshly arrived Tantra Loka by Mark Duchkovsky. What a gift to humanity. Obviously, I don't know if I will ever be able to read this. It's like the 4 books took that much space in the shelf, so I have to rearrange them. And then I pulled out this very slim, those who, I don't know, it was a chain in the 90s, Muji. It's spelled M-U-G-I, Japanese brand that used to make stationery. Even at some point they started making like sneakers and basic things, dead cheap, great pencils, Who remembers that? No? You remember that? Yeah. Oh, really? Okay, so you see, they are still in business. So, and I remember buying those and taking to my mom. My mother, when she was still studying, when she was alive, she was studying all these different disciplines. And this one I kept with me as that token of gratitude, allegiance, reminder whenever I will forget something. And so this is one of her many journals where she wrote these discourses and lectures she studied. And when I opened it, I couldn't do anything. I had to sit down and read because it starts, and it's all in Russian, of course. And like my mother's handwriting became so coherent. It's as if, I don't know, it's like she could have been sat to write holy books, like I swear. You don't believe me, I will photograph and share on social media so that you do not hold me that I'm making it up. Her handwriting became the coherence itself. Beautiful. And it starts with the exposition from the Rig Veda, hymn to plants. You see? So of course it has this added sentiment. my mother's handwriting, who is no longer here. In fact, it's... Yeah. So, it's the hymn, it's also in my mother's tongue, hymns to plants. It's where Rig Veda unfolds. This is where I would like to go myself. If I want to educate myself further, this is where I would like to go. So this is why something lit up in my heart, because it's like there and now, right, you know? Because this is the most formidable knowledge there is. It's the true knowledge that is going to save us. I'm saying that without any kind of like blind faith in ancient wisdom that the ancients came up with. No, but when you read that, it's profound. Every single line is profound reminder, you know. So the line goes, plants were created before any gods were. Plants were created before any gods were. See, there were no gods yet, plants were already created. They are to carry the soma to the beings that will come, so that the soma that the plants carry can serve as a reminder to all beings who they are, and of course to the beings of man. This is the role of plants. Plants are, and the hymn goes as these poetic waves of invocation. So the plant medicine is the medicine of future. It's medicine of the past and it's medicine of future. So we should take it outside of the context of, let's say, plants only as. No, plants here spoken in terms of the most profound relationship, cosmic, universal relationship that we have. And this is why in the 90s, I remember what made the greatest impression on me is when I was exposed to Ayurveda, somewhere circa mid-90s for the first time, around 95. And what is the essence of Ayurvedic preparations? All of them made of plants. Some are just that, spices. Spices that folk in India uses, cooks, you know, with cumin, turmeric, clove, coriander, right? Like cinnamon, whatever. It's spices. All comprises something which then is given a Sanskrit name that is unpronounceable sometimes and is supposed to make you feel good. How does it work? And I read this, that it works at the level of a cellular memory, that the plant here assists to any alignment that is required. Because disalignment happens when there is some loss of cellular memory. So it's not even working neither at the placebo level nor at the homeopathic level, because also those are very valid levels. Homeopathy works in terms of a little bit of poison adds to the immune system, right? A bit of arsenic boosts the strength. Here is a reminder. And then, of course, in the Rig Veda, in the hymns, that's what the relationship is. So it speaks to that relationship of plants and humans. First were plants before gods. To me, it gives me chills. It gave me chills back then, gives me chills now. It's this extraordinary reminder and beauty. And this is why you know my position. Maybe you don't. But those who have been, let's say, you know, like I'm not into Mars, I'm not into moon programs. You know, I'm like really, like, let's go back to Earth. Because we're no longer living on Earth. Let's go back to Earth. We're already like taking us somewhere. We gotta make it, man. You know? Let's listen David Bowie, grant control to Major Tom and dance on this Earth. I don't want to grant control to Major Tom on Mars or even Moon. No. That's what it means. So hymn to plants, this is where I'm with you. I'm so grateful for this reminder, because it's like now I see this as something the wisdom of the Ma tells me. You have still things to learn. Okay, man? Don't just take it for granted. And I would love to go there. I would love to go and learn this. Learn this not at the level of, let's say, just maybe Some should do that. My wife does that. She studies this in-depth Ayurveda now. She's like bitten into the stuff which she mentions these names. I'm like, darling, you left me. I have no idea, no clue the Sanskrit words like that existed even. But I want to dive more into that sacred relationship. So to conclude this, when I was going through this phase of, I would just simply say yes, profound transformation of consciousness. And how sweepingly fast and furious it was. There was this particular, never to be re-experienced, never to be repeated, very short phase, particularly when the heart chakra opened up, when all this happened within a very, very short period of time, approximately within a week, but really within 3 days. There was this experience of complete communion with large plant systems, large trees. There was in meditation and in a sleep, because there was no sleep. There was no sleep as such. You know, the body would do this, that, like there was like continued awareness as light. You see? So there was like no desire to drink, eat, nothing. But there was this awareness of this fluorescent light, and where I was physically, there was this large, hundreds years old, Swiss cottage, Primrose Hill, platan trees, very large. This whole, like if you know London, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Walking distance from Swiss cottage to Primrose Hill, there are these large, magnificent trees. And it was some kind of communication which, like my awareness didn't go like, oh, what is it? Let me look. It's just this marvel, you see? It's just like blissed out, but like, wow, what's that? Magnificent. Okay, let's do it. Let's just enjoy, you know? It was fluorescent, the whole entire root structure. Just confirmation that the roots are larger than the crown, because the roots are not just the roots where they end, but the whole ecosystem of this, and how the trees communicate to each other as well. It's like there is this indescribable experience, which I thought, well, it will continue. I will look into it later, kind of, you know, like to me, there was many different other aspects that we experienced. This was a breaking of the sound, internal sound of, you know, and everything. So this was also a confirmation of that connection. Then, of course, I've heard that people who took ayahuasca, that they connected to plant life and particular group of plants, particular, let's say, kingdom of plants that were given access. See? So when I speak about this, sometimes people come with pragmatic questions. You know, what do you think of microdosing? What do you think of this? What do you think of ayahuasca? Some people need to take this if there is so much cohesiveness and they're like, they don't have a sign, clue, hint that they are more than the body, more than the physical structure, then it will be helpful. But others don't need that at all. Others need to be grounded so that, like, again, constitutionally should be really adhered to what one can take. Someone is like, nervous system is already very agile, easy on the go, vata, right? Ether and air predominant, and then ayahuasca, bad combination. So this is where the cautionary note that I always used to add to these exchanges about what it could do as a downside, because there are also examples, people who are swearing and telling me, listen, man, you have no idea, I've been there, I've done that, it's all fantastic. Then coming back, it's like, I wish I've listened. It was 3 times divine, godly, everything, and the 4th time I was given hell, and I, still trying to pick up the pieces, because it could create literally recessions in the auric field. Because you open up completely, utterly and entirely. The whole system opens up. You see? With meditation, it's different. It also opens up. but there is an integral principle at work. You see? There are much more safety mechanisms are at work there. It's like also I will conclude on that note, in terms of quality, everything is subjected to the qualities that Samkhya philosophy works with, and it is adopted into the body of all esoteric systems, including all the highest tantras, including Kashmir Shaivism. They adopted some principles of Samkhya philosophy, right, which deals with Purusha Prakriti principle. It's dualistic, and the forces with which Prakriti expresses itself and creates, right? Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, the gunas of nature, so-called. The importance of Sattva is constantly stressed out, emphasized. It's very important. Sattva is spoken of as nearest to Brahman in Indic vocabulary, in Indic way of speaking, because it has qualities of light, equilibrium, balance, harmony, everything, Whereas all consciousness-altering substances are tamasic. The experience itself may be elevating, extraordinary, fantastic in every way, opening, but the after effect is tamasic on the system. You see? So one has to be very, very careful. So if the effect constantly going back to the body and into the increase of tamaguna, then sooner or later this is not going to do good. Whereas meditation is, as long as it's done properly, is always increases sattva. Increases sattva. So this is where I would like to bring as a closing notes, that always I try to bring that as a reminder, because sometimes people think that, oh, we can outsmart nature, But this is what it is. People ask, what about this and that? Alcohol. I drink wine. I drink red wine. I allow myself drinking red wine. It's tamasic. I do it consciously. I watched videos by a Hartoli. He's drinking a glass or two of wine. And I feel so brotherly immediately. Like, yes, Eckhart, Maybe wine he drinks is Rothschild and this. I drink local Mallorcan, good, organic, still very good. True Negre, like I feel the earth. It's like you connect to that as well, because you live there and the wine grows there. You drive by the vineyard, you know that vineyard. And so if I was in a time when it would have a strong impact of my consciousness, I would most likely not do that. So therefore I always tell people, do what I say, don't do what I do. Because you get in trouble instantly. You get into trouble. Why? Because one has to really work with one's nature. Work with one's nature. So I think that should suffice there.